Next, from Springfield, we attend a press conference in which several legislators and advocates for retirees expressed their support for HB 5697, the Affordable Long-Term Services and Support for Illinois Families Act. This runs about 20 minutes.
My name is Jean Cameron, and I am the Executive Director of the Illinois Alliance for Retired Americans. We represent over 257,000 retirees across the state of Illinois, many of whom are facing the difficult prospects of having themselves or loved ones age without long-term care insurance. We are here in coalition with Access Living, Caring Across Generations, and SEIU Healthcare in support of House Bill 5697 and Senate Bill 2976, the Affordable Long-Term Services and Supports for Illinois Families Act. Illinois families are struggling to afford care for their aging loved ones. We have all either experienced giving or receiving care in some way. For me personally, my most significant experience was last year when I provided care to my aunt who had stage 4 cancer. I also witnessed the support of her daughter, the support her daughters gave to her every day. I'm in awe of those who provide that level of care for their loved ones. From this experience, I know it is our obligation to make sure everyone is able to access affordable long-term care. We often hear the word crisis when we talk about our rapidly aging population, but actually the crisis is not that we are aging, it is that there is not a care plan in place to ensure our loved ones can age at home in their communities where they want and deserve to remain. This legislation bringing us together today seeks to change this. Governor Rauner's administration has taken a cynical approach to the care crisis. Instead of expanding programs to allow seniors and people with disabilities to stay in their homes, he has continually attempted to cut the state's home care programs, which includes the community care program and the home services program. We have stood up to these attacks, and we are committed to expanding access for those in need of long-term care. This is what this legislation is about, the fundamental need to ensure access to affordable care. In fact, we are not alone. Momentum is growing in other states such as Washington and Maine. We are proud to stand here today with two visionary leaders in our great state and to help lead the nation in addressing this critical issue facing older Americans and their families. I would now like to introduce the sponsor of the House bill, Representative Chris Welch.
Thank you, Jean. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
My name is Chris Welch, as you've heard. I am state representative in the 7th District, which covers a good portion of west suburban Cook County. Happy to be here with Jean and all those standing here and my distinguished colleague, Senator Biss, because the crisis for care for aging Illinoisans has arrived, placing a growing chain of stresses on our seniors and their families alike. But with crisis comes opportunity. And if Illinois acts now, it can get ahead of the problem where too many older adults are falling through the cracks in receiving care. It's a chance for Illinois to act and not react. By acting now to come up with a universal and sustainable long-term plan, Illinois will be able to keep elderly individuals and people with disabilities in their homes with dignity instead of costlier nursing home facilities. The new bill we are introducing today will create a program to help our parents and grandparents receive the care they need and provide them with security for the road that lies ahead. But the crisis is real. Between last year and 2030, the Illinois population over the age of 65 is expected to increase by 40%. That's about 800,000 people to about 1.2 million. And 1 in 7 adults are expected to develop a disability serious enough to require long-term care services. All this is happening as the cost of long-term care services is getting way out of reach for working families and is estimated at $140,000 per individual. What's more, in the current political climate, Republicans in Washington are looking to slash billions of dollars in Medicaid assistance to Illinois, and this is not to mention the cuts to Medicare and to Social Security. Illinois parents and grandparents are relying on their families and are being expected to spend themselves downward into poverty just to qualify for programs that aren't even adequate to cover long-term care. This is on top of stresses to the care workforce in both institutional care and home health care, where scandalously low pay and benefits are leading to higher and higher turnover, which in turn harms the independence and choices of our parents and grandparents and people with disabilities. The time to act is now. It's time to act for all Illinoisans. It's time for Illinois to get ahead of this issue instead of lagging behind. Let's show everyone across this state and across this country that Illinois cares. Now, to discuss our bill in detail and how we can get out in front of this crisis, I'd like to introduce my friend and Senator Daniel Biss.
Thank you, Representative Welch, for your leadership on this and so many other issues, and for the partnership that we've been able to engage in on a number of critical issues in our efforts to level the playing field for ordinary people in Illinois. Thank you to the Alliance for Retired Americans. Thank you to Caring Across Generations and Access Living and the others who are a part of this announcement of this important piece of legislation. Here's the question we need to be asking. In a world where the population is aging, what is our responsibility to one another? Should we act as though the aging population is itself a crisis? Should we hope that families will on their own be able to care for their aging loved ones, for their parents and grandparents, aunts and uncles? Or should we instead come together as a community and decide jointly that every person has a human right to age with dignity and place near their family in their community? That is the right thing to do. That is what Illinois residents want us to do. That's the moral thing to do. And my goodness, that's what each of us wants for our own aging relatives. By the way, let us make sure that we provide a universal system of care for individuals with disabilities as well. Let us view these as part and parcel of the same fundamental rights. And so Senate Bill 2976 seeks to move us swiftly toward that outcome. Senate Bill 2976 recognizes that we have important pieces of infrastructure already in place here in the state of Illinois. Not only Medicaid support of long-term care, but the state program, Community Care Program, which provides supports for many non-Medicaid eligible individuals as well. A program that, by the way, Governor Rauner has relentlessly tried to dismantle year after year after year with a bewildering desire to go after older adults and make their lives more difficult. What we now need to do is conduct the necessary actuarial studies to make sure that we know the precise cost and have identified the correct progressive revenue sources to enable full funding of a universal system of long-term care. And Senate Bill 2976 initiates that process. Senate Bill 2976 creates a trust that will be the mechanism of funding for this program. And Senate Bill 2976, in my opinion, most importantly of all, creates a right in Illinois to access to long-term care. It recognizes the fundamental human value at stake here, and it recognizes the technical challenges that will be needed to be overcome for us to get from here to there, and it begins walking us down that path. It puts us in a position where, should this bill be signed into law, Illinois will then be irrevocably down the path toward creating universal access to long-term care. That is what our communities want. That is what our families deserve, and that is what the state of Illinois needs. I look forward to working aggressively and quickly to bring this bill into law and create this important right for Illinois residents.
Thank you, Senator Biss. Now I'd like to introduce Amber Smock, Advocacy Director for Access Living.
Okay, thank you. Can everyone hear me? Oh, fantastic. Okay. So my name is Amber Smock. The last name is spelled S-M-O-C-K, in case you need to know. I'm the Director of Advocacy for Access Living, which is a disability rights and services organization based in Chicago. The important thing to know about Access Living, it is run by and for people with disabilities. And we are very excited to come here today to support the Affordable Long-Term Services and Support for Illinois Families Act, because a major concern that we have every day, day in and day out at Access Living, is to make sure that people with disabilities and seniors can live their lives in their homes where they want to be. You can never tell, and nobody ever has a plan for the day when you might need personal care or homemaker services in your home. My father worked all his life in a healthcare setting, and he didn't have a plan for long-term services and supports. I work full-time, and I don't have a plan for long-term services and supports in my home where I want to be if that day ever comes. Thousands and thousands of people in Illinois have this situation. Right now, we know that in this state there are about 12 million people, right? So somewhere between 12 and 13 million people. Of those 12 million people, 1.4 million people in this state have a disability. Over 300,000 of those have Medicaid, but what about the rest? What about everybody else? 37% of the people who identify as having disabilities are seniors. What about the rest? Who has a plan? Medicaid is not going to save you if you don't have it, right? Medicare only helps you for long-term services and supports up to a point. You will not be saved if you don't have a plan. As the senator and the representative just said, now is the time to act. Now is the time to have a conversation about that. So I would like to add, as a disability advocate, that something important to know about this bill is that there are also thousands of people who are waiting for Medicaid services. So we are not just talking about people who might need service or support someday, but we're also talking about people who are waiting for service right now. This bill is intended to provide people with a way out. Some of you may have been in the situation where you have a family member who acquires a disability. Maybe they have cancer, maybe they have multiple sclerosis. Something happens. And you know what happens? Their spouse or their child gives up their job in order to support them. That is a tragedy for working class families. That should not be happening. People should not have to give up their job just so their loved one can have support at home. That's not right. That's what forces people into institutional settings. So this plan, this is a way to start talking about where we can go from here and what we should be doing and how we should be living in our own homes in the state of Illinois. Thank you.
Thank you, Amber. Finally, I'd like to introduce Don Todd. He's an Illinois Alliance for Retired Americans Central Illinois leader.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
As Jean said, my name is Don Todd, and I'm a retiree living in Springfield. As you have heard here today, multiple generations in Illinois need a solution to how they're going to pay for care going forward, beginning with mine. When I was little, back in the 50s, my grandparents both had debilitating illnesses and were taken care of by my mom and dad in Pinckneyville in southern Illinois. My dad was a coal miner and truck driver, and my mom was able to stay at home. Even then, it was a struggle. But today, they would not have been able to do even that and take care of me, an only child. My daughter is expecting her third child in August. It's tough for her now. I can't imagine what she would do if she needed to take care of me as well. We live in an economy where families need 2, 3, or even more different streams of income to get by. Existing programs aren't going to be enough, and the rising out-of-pocket costs for medical care mean a lot of people are going to start falling through the cracks if they haven't already. The new legislation we're talking about today addresses this new reality directly and can put Illinois on a path where families can have peace of mind when it's time to meet challenges of care. Illinois parents and grandparents and their daughters and sons will never get ahead if we don't confront this crisis now. Thank you.
Thank you, Don. We'd now like to open up for questions.
Senator, this bill, I'm not seeing anything in it yet. Officially, you're going to file, but it's just the title. So can you tell us more about what's actually in it? How does it work? We've heard politicians talk about affordable care before, and that can be hard to accomplish. How does it make care more affordable?
Well, it creates an actuarial study to make sure that we have a perfect grip of the precise costs of this right. And then it sets in place a series of deadlines for the study to be completed at some point during the course of 2019, for the program to be in operation during the course of 2020, and for the full enrollment to have taken place by 2025. What we know for certain is that the most cost-effective and humane way to provide care for older adults is in precisely the way proposed in this program, through home care and services and supports, as opposed to moving people into more expensive nursing home care. We also believe in doing this responsibly and meticulously, which is why the actuarial study is a necessary first step toward eventual full implementation.
Dan,
How do you create?
can I just follow to clarify that, or, because I don't know all the rules on Medicaid. Can we currently spend Medicaid on care at home, or is that what this bill is basically? I'm kind of like
So we
Mark trying to
currently
figure out
do.
what
Here,
this does.
you'll recall we've had a lot of press conferences on a somewhat related topic, and I think walking through that is probably helpful here. Governor Rauner has sought to shred the community care program. What the specific thing he's saying in trying to do that is he's saying, well, listen, there's some Medicaid eligible people whose supports are already covered by Medicaid, and there are other non-Medicaid eligible people whose community care program supports are entirely funded by the state. What he's been trying to do is to take a giant step backward and shred the program for that second population, those who are not Medicaid eligible. What we're doing is saying, no, hold on, there ought to be universal access, and so we're trying to figure out the best way to expand access to all not Medicaid eligible people in need of these services.